I won't even open up!
Normally, I'm not one to snoop around in my daughter's business, but when she doesn't leave her room for over a good 12 hours, I had an excuse. It was around 8 p.m., and my daughter had been in her room playing video games since 8 a.m. I heard her screams a few times throughout the day, but recently she's been getting into horror games. But that was now a normal occurrence, so I thought nothing more of it. But since she's been in there literally all day without leaving once, I need to take an intervention. I opened the door casually, calling out her name. Her not answering was my first clue something was wrong. I checked her bed, closet, and even shelves and cabinets, but there wasn't any clue as to where she could have been. Getting frantic, she's been kidnapped or worse. I decided to instead to dwell in the thought that she may be just outside in another room. And I just didn't want to hear her sneak out like she usually does. Before I left, I couldn't help but notice her GameCube. The controller was still on the bed, as if she just had been playing it. Feeling sneaky, like it was my responsibility, I turned the station on to play whatever the game was in for a bit, just to see how it kept my daughter's attention for 12 hours. I felt like a wave of nostalgia as the game started up, of when I used to play games with my daughter all the time. After I tested a quick sample of whatever this was, I vowed to play a little with my daughter. She needed someone to be herself with anyways, specifically with how depressed she's been recently. So I caught up with my thoughts. The title screen music took me a bit of a surprise. After a moment, I realized that it was a Pokemon channel. I remember how much my daughter used to love playing that game. Maybe she was just getting addicted to playing it. Whatever the case, there was only new game options, so I selected it. I found myself in what appears to be the bedroom. The only thing about this room was the walls appeared to be drenched in blood and contained more little Pikachu dolls littered throughout of it. Plus, a less than appealing Pikachu head as a TV. No wonder my daughter was screaming earlier. Fighting down my nausea, I look around the room. After a while, the red everywhere and sharp fangs scared effects were off. I could explain with more ease. I noticed a picture of Jirachi hanging on the wall. It was one of the few Pokemons I knew right off the bat, since it was one of my daughter's favorite. The picture would actually have been pretty if it didn't have the large red X over with bloody claw marks. A bit scared to examine the rest of the game world, I said open to start the menu to find what would look like a diary or journal of some sorts. There appeared to be the entries in it, so I read,
I didn't get very far through as the menu closed without my comment. I came face to face with a Pikachu who looked at me. He wasn't very pleased. It scowled at me, and the GameCube shut off. Well then, I was a bit insulted, of all things, and quickly turned the system back on. As soon as I backed into action in the room, the Pikachu wasn't there anymore. The room was still the same. Pikachu dolls were staring down at me. So I swelled the screen around to the back of a room to find myself freezing fear. There was a Jirachi floating in the front of a door, and its eyes were closed. But one of its stomach was wide open and hyper-realistic bloodshot eyes. It was cracked and broken. From what it was bleeding, I also noticed the colors were grayscale, but I was too occupied staring at the eyes, which was starting straight back at me. I couldn't decide. The relief I felt when the thing left. I realized I'd been holding my breath and let it out. I felt like an icy claws has been holding a grip on me. And now that it had released me, I wanted to take an opportunity to turn this thing off, but something compelled me to keep going on. I just decided if the thing would pop up again, this game was going to be in the trash. I turned around to find the Pikachu staring at me with a menacing face. Standing in front of the TV, it glared at me when the TV back on. I followed it a bit scared of what it might do if I didn't. Plus, I'd rather be with a cute cuddly creature than a disturbing eyeball creature. It changed the channel to a PNF, which according to the game was the news. It zoomed into the duck Pokemon, which is called Psyduck. Playing the game was starting to recharge my old Pokemon knowledge, and then appended into the news station screen. It showed that Jirachi is floating through the crimson Cockrass Stern Mellow, a burning forest, bloody beach, a dead snowy mountain, and made sure to get it all a lot of angles. The Jirachi finally stopped in the middle of the darkness and turned to face me. The Psyduck's eyes suddenly went black, and it turned to face the screen. In the text box where there had previously been nothing, something appeared. Save X. The Pikachu quickly changed the channel into an egg channel. There was a white egg wiggling around in the void of darkness. It had cracks, blood dripping from them. It wobbled back and forth very slowly, almost painfully. I didn't want to know what's going to hatch from that thing. Apparently, the Pikachu had some same thoughts, so it turned off the TV. Back in the center of the room, the screen pointed towards a Pikachu with a text box with, "BRVR wants to know if you play with him, X or O." Assuming O was a yes and X were a no, I selected O. Startling to game to despite how unnerving it was. It pinned away from BRVR and he grinned, showing off his bloody fangs. Another text at the top of the screen. "You're going to regret that." And I'm sure as hell as I will. He went outside and I followed along behind him. Although it didn't have much choice as the game made me, it wasn't much prettier outside than inside. The sky was blood red, although it was prettier than a dead Pokemon body lying everywhere. He didn't seem to be fazed at the scene as much as I was. I just went along to the meadow next door. The field wasn't much different. Blood and bodies, although there was a hole in the ground which BRVR seems to take interest in. He reached into it and pulled out of one of these unsettling hyper-realistic eyes like on a Jirachi. He threw an eye at me, which occasionally fell to the ground. BRVR shook his head and glared, catching and throwing to BRVR. The text up for me. I grimaced and moused over the eye to pick it up. Instead, I picked up the dead Poochyana's body, which had quickly dropped back to the ground. BRVR doubled over laughing on the other side of the screen, to which glared at him. He grinned and made a motion eager for me to pass the eyeball. I selected it and I threw it as fast as I could without looking at the screen. When I looked again, River was holding it and threw it back. I ran to the side of the screen so I wouldn't have to see it. The screen faded to black and then back. I assumed it was a minigame sequence was over. Although Berber was holding the eyeball, then without any warning whatsoever, he ate it. I sat there disgusted as he finished off eating the eyeball. After grinning afterwards, the screen suddenly shifted to black and then back and once again, except when it comes the sky was dark gray and everything else was darker tint. Berber's smug grin was now mostly once more. He walked back through the meadow to the house, very slowly with the same gloomy expression all the way, almost like if it was a zombie. If anything was more disturbing than his previous morbid form, once back at the casa, everything was bright and uncheery once more. I noticed a trail of blood on the floor that wasn't there previously, and I followed over the small like closet compartment and prepared myself for the worst. I opened it. Inside, the walls were covered in blood, with a pile of skinny limbs, guts on the floor, a head torn on top. I barely had 3 seconds to look at the sight before Berber ran over to shut the closet door. He made a threatening growl at me, then ran into the back door and outside to the bus stop. I tagged along behind. Out of the bus stop, the sky was red and the environment throbbing once more. The bus to BRVR the Pikachu pulled up and we got on it. Even though I didn't select it, I was accustomed to this now. After what would be an innocent cutscene, we arrived to the forest set aflame, charred bodies slitting the ground, picking our way through the landscape at ease. Well, Berber did so with ease. We went through the other side of the forest. I felt like it was a campsite. Except a large bonfire in the middle was a pile of fleshy, burning bodies, all set size for fuming the flames. There was also a projector, which, after a quick flickering by Berber, starry sky, the movie started playing. I braced myself for the worst. It delivered.
Most of the movie was buggy and glitchy, but from what I could tell, it was mainly other Pokémon being brutally maimed and killed. Dead, bloody carcasses, pretty much everything I'd seen up to this point, just in different poses and angles. Although, seeing them in animation was a bit more unnerving, despite how the animation programming seemed choppy and shaky, like the game wasn't made for it. But what was different was that the eye would be there, and flash in the static every now and then. A more prominent notice is that the Jirachi was in some frames too, without its eye. It seemed to be tortured more than murdered though. Some scenes were where it was drowning in a lake of blood, a stake-like thing impaled through where its stomach eye would be, it being hung from some ceiling, and a whole variety of others. But it looked like it was suffering, and just couldn't die no matter what happened to it. Eventually, it ended, after taking its dear sweet time. Once back on the ground, BRVR started to charge for an attack. He fired a bolt of lightning and struck the projector. The screen went black, and then back to the body-fueled fire. Except the projector was gone, and everything was darker, more grey tone. BRVR started painfully strolling through the forest, and back to the bus stop. All with that face void of emotion. Back home, BRVR started running around, and I wanted to take my time before our next outing. I browsed around the room, now completely immune to its ghastly interior, and found a binder. I opened it to find a bunch of Pokémon cards, except each and every Pokémon in it was morbidly disfigured. There was an oddish, brown wrinkled like a dried prune, maggots crawling out of its eye sockets and other slashes in its carcass. Magby was hung from the collar-like thing on its neck, only a few tendons connecting its head to its frail body. In the Milotic card, it looked like a dried out snakeskin, pus leaking from several cracks along its flesh. Poochyena looked like a pile of roadkill, mangy, blood-clotted fur with flies floating around it and foam at the mouth. Vulpix had an oily-like substance dripping from its mouth and black, soulless eyes. And of course, the Jirachi card looked like the demented version of it I was getting used to. But the one that genuinely gave me the chills was the Pikachu. It was curled up in a ball with its eyes closed, floating in a red fleshy void, and bobbed up and down as I moved the card around with a control stick. It reminded me of a fetus still in the womb, which quite frankly, creeped the hell out of me more so on a personal level than any other cards, so I hastily changed it.
You have a lot of fun with being a YouTuber like that. Just like how Shane said it is. But he didn't last long. It won't be long now since I will take over the entire channel. Finished. Sometimes, that is an undertaking. But it's the only solution of your own swing. You and me alive. Two partial videos lately, at some point, maybe gets me realized. I will try to take over your entire channel, so that it won't be yours.
Once I was done browsing the card collection, which was pretty quick, I exited out to find BRVR holding one of those morbid Pikachu dolls. He looked somber and walked around slowly with it for a minute, like a lost child looking for his mother. Then, he turned to me. He walked up to me and asked a question in text. Do you know what's happening to me? It didn't talk in third person perspective like before, so this was a bit of a fourth wall breaker on me. I selected X because, quite frankly, I still didn't have much of a clue as to what was going on at all. He sighed and looked despondent and defeated. He set down the doll and then ran out the door, me following in tow. At the bus stop, we hopped on the bus to Cobalt Coast. The beach was littered with bodies, and the water bloody. A perfect vacation destination. Before I could get a good examination of the place, BRVR ran out into the ocean. He sprinted way far out there, and started swimming, and eventually, on out of my sight. The screen faded to black, then back. And when it came to, the sky was grey, and everything was in a darker tone. He came swimming back to shore. His face looked fearful, an emotion I had yet to see from him. A message appeared atop the screen. BRVR tried to wash away the pain. It didn't work. He walked slowly back to the bus, looking around every few seconds, like he saw something who knows how awful in that ocean, and it might come back to get him. Once into the bus and back at the house, he still seemed a bit paranoid. I felt myself pretty good since that was the shortest outing yet. I selected the Pokémon Mini that was sitting next to the binder, since I didn't get a chance to check it out before. There were 6 games to choose from, so I picked a random one on the bottom left. When the game started, it was a glitched mess. I was surprised I could find a start button. Once it started, the background to it was solid black, with a pair of sharp teeth floating in it. A heart appeared below it, and I pressed A. The fangs opened and closed like it was eating it, and a positive bleep sound, so I assumed whatever I did was right. I kept eating the hearts for a couple of seconds, until an eyeball appeared. When I ate it, the minigame glitched out into a chaotic mess, even worse so than before, along with a high-pitched noise that grated my eardrums. I quickly mashed a variety of buttons until I exited out of that mess and was back in the room. BRVR was standing in front of the back door, and I knew what that meant before I even opened it and went to the bus stop. This time, we went to Mount Snowfall. It was snowing softly, and frostbitten bodies were piled up halfway under the snow. I felt more sad here than anything else. It wasn't grotesque and brutal like the other places, but more of like a sad graveyard. BRVR seemed to feel the same way, as he slowly and carefully treaded through the snow, over to the next section, and into a temple dubbed by the game, the Ruins of Truth. Inside it was pitch black. BRVR walked over to the left to find two what I assume would be flowers, except they had eyeballs instead of petals. He charged up an electric attack and fired it at one, which caused it to glow and illuminate the room in a dark red hue. He lit up the other one, which made the room even brighter. The room was still fairly dark. The red hue just seemed to make it more ominous. BRVR walked over the bridge and to the other side, where a tall stone tablet was sitting, with a big circle and X button. I selected it, and a question appeared. Redemption? I suddenly felt very anxious and bit my lip, unsure of how to answer. I selected the circle and hoped for the best. BRVR walked up and pressed the circle button. The tablet sank into the ground. The pillars surrounding the now hole in the ground suddenly lit up, and I felt a pit form in my stomach. The ground shook as something started to rise from the hole. Although BRVR didn't even flinch. Out of the hole rose the demented Jirachi. Text appeared on the top of the screen. There is no redemption. The eyeball on Jirachi's stomach rose over its head, and just when I was about to cover my eyes, the screen cut to black. When it came back, it was on the egg channel. The same egg from before was still there. But before I could react, the bleeding egg started glowing, and then it hatched. Out popped a Jirachi. A normal, non-mentally scarring Jirachi. It flew off the screen, and then the channel changed, like when you're watching TV on a full screen with Pikachu. It went to a static channel titled 444.
Hey, Dad, look at this.
I can't believe I killed John Redcorn. How can I live with that? What's wrong with me?
The notebook becomes part of the human realm from the very moment it touches the earth. If you don't want it, just give it to someone else. But if you give it away, I'd have no choice but to erase your memories of the notebook.
There's 2 books.
No, I don't like contours, the deadness. Something is severely unright with that. But I couldn't kill this little.
No, no. Sorry, Nancy. I've had enough. I want out.
I think I can help, Shug.
Call the police.
Open up! Police!
Oh, hey. Yep. Yep. Oh, man. Something back there. Oh, God.
Did you know, in Greek mythology, a siren was a beautiful woman who sang so sweetly that she could make sailors crash into the rocks? Bye.
I'm in control of the channel. You are completely finished, Arthur.